Barsisa was a monk and he was a pious worshipper of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Anyway, Barsisa was from Banu Israel and he had his own temple. And he would worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala day and night. And some narrations talk about him, worshipping Allah for about 60 years. One day, 3 brothers, they decided to go on jihad. They wanted to go on a long expedition. They had one problem. They had a sister. And this sister, they didn't know what to do with her. Who's going to look after their sister while they're away? So they, sought counsel with one another. They decided who better to leave their sister with than this great monk, this great worshipper of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this pious person by the name of Barsisa. So they went to Barsisa and they said, listen, Barsisa, we want to go and perform jihad. We want to go away and do, on this long expedition, and we want you, Barsisa, to look after our sister. Now immediately Barsisa says, A'udhu billah, I seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He didn't want any form of temptation or any kind of fitna. And so the brothers walked away. Then Shaitan came to Barsisa and said, listen, Barsisa, you're a pious person. You're the most pious person in town. If you don't look after their sister, then maybe somebody else will, and maybe they'll do something bad with her. They won't look after her well, they won't treat her well, and maybe she will be a temptation for them. So Shaitan came to Barsisa in this way. So Barsisa went to these 3 brothers and he basically said to them, listen, I'll agree, I will look after your sister. However, she will stay in a room that is specifically, next to the temple where I worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They bid farewell to their sister. And Barsisa would basically look after their sister and she would stay in the room next to the temple. Barsisa would never enter that room. So he would cook some food for her and he would leave it outside his own house or at the temple. And so she would come outside, she would take the food and then go back into her room. And then, and this happened for a while. And then eventually Shaitan came to Barsisa and said, listen, this poor woman, she's coming outside of her house in order to get this food. What are you doing, Barsisa? You should at least take the food to her so she doesn't have to come outside. She's a beautiful woman. Maybe someone will see her and maybe they will do some kind of harm to her. Barsisa eventually, he started taking the food to this woman's house. And he would leave the food outside the house of this woman, outside the room of this woman.